you dingus.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. Apotham, good to see you. I'm not sure who followed, but thank you for the follow. I heard the notification, so thank you for that. Welcome. Fromlake, good to see you over there on the YouTube side. Let's see, how's the progress? Very, very good, I would say. We'll go over that here in just a minute. But before we get into that, I guess let me go ahead and give a big shout out to the supporters of the channel, starting with our elite partner, Javier Alazaron, followed by our partners, Gabolis Inc. and Matt Oscard. They are the highest tiers of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon, followed by the list of supporters you see scrolling here on the screen. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for that support. It's greatly appreciated and helps me cover the costs associated with running this channel and project. Things like software licenses, hosting fees, other things of that nature. So thank you all very much for that support. I really appreciate it. In addition to that, a big thank you to all of you who are joining live here, either on the YouTube side or the Twitch side. We do simulcast to both, or if you're catching the VOD after the fact, a big thank you to you guys for being here and interacting and following along, because without you guys, this project and this channel would not exist. So thank you all very much for being here. Okay, so progress. Last stream we were working on the texture browser, and if I recall correctly, where we had left off on that was we had some weird scrolling issues and some offset bugs and things of that nature. And so I went ahead and fixed those things offline. There were just a couple of minor things there that I had to fix. Nothing too huge. The commits for that are already on the Kohi repo. The other thing that I've done that is a little bit more significant is I added a search feature, which we had briefly talked about. And I think we might have even added these in the last stream, but I don't think we actually had it working. So now we actually have the ability to search all of these textures by name and filter them. And we also have this checkbox over here, which is game package only. And so if we have that checked, we are limited to all of the image assets or the textures that are available in the game package. If I uncheck that, it will load up everything that is in the other packages as well, which there aren't a whole heck of a lot now, but we have things like our standard water textures, some of our fonts, things like that. And of course the UI font or the UI control array. Atlas is the word I'm looking for. So we don't necessarily need those, so the default for this is basically just to have that checked. And then we can come in here and we can search. So if I wanted to, I could type in yellow and hit enter, and it just filters by that. And I could also back this out to nothing, and it filters by that. If I were to search for something that does not show up in the game package, but maybe shows up in one of the other packages like DUDV, that's one of the water textures, you'll note that there's no results here, but if I uncheck this box, then we get a result. So we have a nice way to sort of be able to filter out our textures. And so with that, that puts us in a pretty nice position to be able to take a look at some of the metadata that goes along with this and some other features in terms of actually getting this texture browser to function and be able to select textures and be able to import them and things of that nature. So that's kind of what we're setting up to be able to do. Let's see. Adam Rusherud, good to see you. He's asking, how long did it take to get to this point? So it has been, I actually created the Kohi repo in Palm Theory. Thank you for the tier 1 sub. I appreciate that. 3 months. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for that support. So I created the Kohi repo in February of 2021. And so I've been working on it since then. So that's technically 5 calendar years. However, the big asterisk to keep in mind there is that I work on this less than part-time hours every week. So I would cut that number probably in 4 to 5 pieces, and I would say it's really a little over a year's worth of work if you're thinking full-time hours to get to this point. So that would be my estimate in terms of hours. I haven't tracked hours. I probably should have done that. That might have been a neat metric to have, but unfortunately I haven't done that. But if I were to estimate it, that's probably what it is, because I realistically spend like a max of 10 to 15 hours on this a week. And some weeks it doesn't even get that. So a very casual 5 years of C. Yes, extremely casual, I would say. Absolutely. And part of those hours, I would say, is actually done here on stream, which is interacting with chat and doing other things. So I don't even know that I would count all of that in that development time either. That's why I'm saying I think dividing that number into 4 or 5 is probably pretty accurate, I would say. Let's see. 256 says, good to see you're still alive. Yes, I am still alive. Thank you very much. For now, anyways, right? For all of us. But yes, doing okay. I actually have a point to bring up about that in just a second. But let me catch up on the other bits of chat first before I get into that. Does it search files from a directory or search arrays in memory? So this actually searches the asset manifest, is the way that this ultimately works. So it reaches into the VFS and gets all of the things that are currently registered with the asset manifest. So when we go ahead and do texture imports, we're going to be adding to that manifest, and then we can query from that. So we don't search on disk for anything from this perspective. This is stuff that's already been imported into the engine. We are going to have an import dialog that we're going to add to this texture browser that will allow us to load things off disk, but we're not there yet. That's probably one of the next things that we're going to add after we have the ability to select individual textures and view their properties and so forth. Full industry year sounds about right. Might be a little fast for C. Yeah, but I think that's probably about where it stands realistically. I would say 1 to 1.25 years is probably realistically where it's at. Okay, so one more thing I do want to bring up is this may wind up being a short stream tonight because I've got pretty aggravated carpal tunnel in this hand. And that, of course, is the hand that I use for half of my typing in the mouse. And I am ambidextrous and can switch, but it's really hard to type with one hand, right? So it's pretty aggravated today. So I'm going to go as long as I can go, and if the pain just gets too much, I'm going to have to end the stream early. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I'm just letting you guys know ahead of time that may be a thing. So we will see where we wind up on that. Nice to see the progress. Due to things I can't explain, my game engine of 6 months had to be stopped and could never see the light of day, so I'm back to square one. Ooh, that sucks, Apotham. Sorry to hear that. Oof. Yeah, I have an idea of what some of the things are that might have caused that, and I can understand you not wanting to talk about it, but yes. Hopefully you're able to recover from that sometime soon. I mean, I guess if you need a base or you need to steal some code, steal from Kohi, right? Feel free. That's what it's out there for if you need it or want it. Let's see. Will your editor support docking? Seems only I'm GUI supports docking, but it is third-party stuff in a CPP. You know, I hadn't thought about it, but that would be an interesting thing to explore. Because one thing I'm starting to see, and actually I think we're going to have to address this sooner rather than later, is we don't really have a concept of windowing or dialog boxes, which I think is going to be something we're going to need relatively soon. Because it'd be nice to have like some different windows up here for like minimize, maximize, close, a preset title bar, things like that. Maybe even resizability. So I think maybe docking might fit decently into that, because one thing I have thought about is anchoring, which is something we're going to have to add soon, which basically says when I resize this window, essentially what dimensions of the window does a control stick to? Does it stick to the top left, which is sort of your default, or does it stick to the bottom right, where it sort of follows the window down? That's kind of what this text here does. It sticks to the bottom. So if I extend that, it follows it down. Or does it stick to all of them and just expands in size, right? So that's going to be something we're going to have to figure out sometime soon. So I think that and windowing and docking all kind of go hand in hand. So maybe we will support that. We'll see. I don't have an immediate need for it in the editor, but it might be an interesting thing to put in place anyway. I don't think it would be that hard to put in either. As long as, I guess the real bits to support that would be drag and drop support would be the biggest thing. Stretch my hands out flat and sleep on them that way. If it wasn't from coding though, it was from gaming and coding. Started doing that a long time ago. Yeah, I actually use a brace when I go to sleep so that I can't move this wrist at all. But I'm actually having it operated on next month because it's gotten that out of control. Yeah, it's getting to the point where it interferes with quite a lot. So yeah, it's fun. Use Kohi as a reference all the time, but I'm not really into just taking the code. Hey, that's fair. That's what it's there for, right? The code's there if you want it. It's there as a reference if you want it. Do with it as you will. That's why it has the permissive license. Okay. I don't know why the automod caught that message, but let's go ahead and show that. There we go. I'm not going to... Actually, now I know why the automod got that. I'm not going to read that at him, but yes, it's funny. Should have slept on your hands. Well, the thing is, like, I prefer to, like, sleep on my side like this, but I can't do that for other reasons. But getting old sucks, is what I have to say. Take care of your hands. Get an ergonomic keyboard, ergonomic mouse. I have those things now, but I should have had them years ago. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we want to do with selection, because we talked a little bit about initially when we were kind of conceptualizing this. We wanted to have the concept of really what this was to be used for. Let me extend this out a little bit. Dustin, my dudes.
Travis, good to see you, man. Hope all is well.
Thank you so much for the tier 1 resub, the 7-month streak. Thank you so much for that support. It's great to see you. I hope you're doing well also. So what this was originally for, looks like I screwed up clipping. Okay. I think I know what that is. So that's a bug I need to fix. So yeah, because that's not clipping anymore. Why is that not clipping anymore? But this one does. Okay. Well, anyways, I'm not going to worry about that now. I'll fix that offline. I'm not really too worried about it. But the entire point of us creating this was when you come over here to the material browser for the terrain editor, to be able to click on one of these and essentially have it launch this texture browser, and then we could select one of the textures that we wanted to assign to that and click an OK button. That'll be down here, and that's that. But also to be able to open up the texture browser with a button to just see what's here, import new textures, things of that nature. And so it's going to have a few different modes. It's going to have sort of a selection mode, and then it'll have just a standard browsing mode. And the selection mode will have an OK and a cancel, whereas the browsing mode might just have neither of those buttons with just a close up in the top or something like that. And depending on which mode you're in will determine what happens when you close the window. So that's kind of the idea there. Pale Blue Zebra with a 15 stream streak. Thank you so much for being here. Good evening to you as well. How are you? Welcome. Let's see. The real JT Gill. It has been a minute since I've seen you. How are you doing? Kohi is still going strong. New big words when computers became a thing in high school, or a thing in school. I mentioned carpal tunnel to a teacher, and they told me just keep them straight. Best teacher ever. Yeah. I actually have a split keyboard, so that's a little bit easier on my hands in terms of that. But and sit on them upside down. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about all that, but part of it is just hereditary too, or genetic disposition to have that kind of thing happen, but it is what it is. Not too shabby. Thanks for asking. Well, I appreciate you asking as well. So, okay, so let's figure out how we want to handle selection first. So I think for this, it makes sense to have single selection. I don't think we're going to support multi-selection in this. I don't see any scenario where we're actually going to need to do that. So what I'm thinking is we have a selection frame that outlines the texture that says this is the currently selected texture. So when we click on it, we should essentially show the frame, which will just be probably something that looks like this frame around this text box here. It'll look something like that. And then we'll say show the frame and move it to the coordinates of this particular control. And I guess I don't think I'm going to have it select the text just yet. I think I might actually have it select just the image, because this is really just a sort of a preview to kind of give you an idea of what the name is. And then when we select that, it should populate this inspector over here with everything. The other thing I'm thinking is we probably ought to have like a default selected texture. So I think the default case is going to be we just select the first texture in the list as the default selection. So when you open this up, it'll have the first texture selected. It'll have its info pulled up over here, and then you can change it from there. However, if we open this by selecting this guy, then what we'll do is if this actually contains a texture and it's not just invalid texture, then what we'll do is we'll select that texture from the list. So if we select this particular material's texture, it would essentially auto select this guy here. I think that makes the most sense. So that's what we're going to go with. So the first step is we are going to handle the selected texture control, if it were, as it were. So if we go to, and I was actually thinking about scripting controls as well, but I'm not quite ready to talk about that, but just kind of a sneak preview of something else I'm thinking about. So we have image boxes, labels. Let's put Kohi control, and we'll say text browser selected frame. And I think that's just going to be it's essentially going to be a 9-slice control. I wonder if we can, we've got a few controls that actually use 9 slices, but I don't know if we actually have one that just does that on its own without something else. I know buttons do it, and text boxes do it. I don't know if we might actually have to create or extend another control. So we have in the Atlas, let's see, we have the panel, we have a button, we have the button, up arrow, down arrow, text box, scroll bar. Scroll bar has one too. Checkbox has its own image. Do I want to create another kind of control that just has a 9-slice? It seems kind of goofy, but I also feel like it's something that we're going to use from time to time, so maybe we do that. So maybe we have something like, let's see, where's text box? Let's use this as a template. So we'll say instead of text box, we'll copy pasta that, and we'll just set something up for a new control that we'll just call 9slice, which will be a 9slice control. And it's only going to have a single mode. Which is going to use, let's see, extents and then the corner pixel size and the corner size. So I don't think we need any of this. And we don't actually need a name for it. We can just use that. In fact, we don't need modes either. Oops. Right. Okay. So I guess we can have a 9slice. Do I want to control for that, or do I want to just use panel? Maybe I should call this, you know what, I'm going to call this, instead of 9slice, I'm going to call this frame. Or frame control. Which uses a 9slice, right? But it's also going to be a frame that, like, outlines things. I think that makes a little bit more sense. Just thinking my way through this. I think, yeah, let's go with a frame control. I think that makes the most sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to base this on... I'm going to base this on the actual... I could probably just use the text box control as a sort of template for this, and then just cut out the stuff I don't need. So if we go to source controls, controls, and we have, let's see, do we have, yeah, I guess it probably would be easiest to just do it that way. So let's actually just copy pasta this. We'll rename this to KUI frame. And we'll do KUI frame here. Right, and in here we'll just do, in fact I can actually just do a, get rid of that buffer, bat this one off to the side for a second. And what we can do is do a find and replace on this. So we'll do text box and we'll replace it with frame globally. And also, the create doesn't need all of these properties. In fact, the only thing that it actually needs is just those. Simple enough. Okay, so let's go to frame C, and we're going to do the same query in here. And there's actually going to be a whole bunch of stuff that we can get rid of. So all of this stuff about focusing, this is not going to be a focusable control. So we're not going to have to worry about pasting. Let's see, this is on key. We don't need to worry about that either. This is update cursor position. We don't need that, so we can cut that. Let's see. Highlight box, we don't need that either. Cursor offset, we don't need that. Don't need selection of any kind. Boy, maybe this was the wrong one to sort of base this off of, but here we are. Let's see. Yeah, we're actually not going to need most of the logic in here. We do need the control render. We do want to keep that. There are parts, there's only part of it that we're actually going to need, but we do need to keep that. We'll keep the update. Yeah, we do need to keep the updates. The color set. We're going to need to change the color of the frame. I suppose I could leave it in there. Height and width set we definitely want to keep. Size set we want to keep. Destroy we want to keep. Create obviously we want to keep. Okay, so all of this stuff can go. And all of this stuff can go. All right. So what we need now is we need a new type of base control, or a new type of control rather. So again, I'm going to go ahead and copy the text box control, which I think, again, we're going to wind up taking a bunch of stuff out of this, but that's okay. And I'm going to actually put it right here. And we're going to do a frame control right there. So we don't need an event listener. We don't need line height. We don't need, let's see, any of those things. We don't need focus 9 slice. We don't need the type. We are going to keep the color and the size and the base control. That is about it. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. Let me see. Looks like I've got some chat to catch up on over here. Eyeless42, good to see you. Hello. Frozen Shadow, good to see you as well. Want to learn OpenGL, but a friend tells me DirectX is more stable and has better debug tools. What should I do? Yeah, Potham's answer is pretty much spot on there. If you're wanting to do anything ever besides just Windows, then I would say start with OpenGL. But if you're only ever planning in Windows, then DirectX is a better API. I would agree with that. So yeah, that's the main thing there. I will say that OpenGL is probably a little easier to start with. Ish. I mean, DirectX can be a little bit easier because it already comes with like most of the stuff that you need to build it on Windows, but I still think that OpenGL is an easier library to sort of wrangle when you're learning graphics programming from nothing. Don't want to exclude Linux users. Anybody can play your game on any device. Your friend makes it sound like there's tons of bugs on OpenGL. I mean, they all have bugs. So don't go by that. There's DirectX bugs too. There's Vulkan bugs. Like, they all have them. So yeah, don't go by that. What is this IDE? This is NeoVim. In fact, I have an article on my website with a complete setup, assuming my bot is actually going to respond to that. It might not. Looks like the bot's being a dingus. All right, let me pull up the link manually. So if you go there, I've got an article written up on my complete NeoVim setup. I'll paste that on the YouTube side as well. Okay. Let's see. Two hours a week, lift some weights. Yeah. I'm going to be barred from doing that at all for a while when I get my surgery. I'm not going to be able to lift anything over 5 pounds with this hand for like 6 weeks. So that's going to be interesting. What is a vertical mouse? A vertical mouse is this. I have one. So it literally makes it so that your hand is more at a vertical angle versus like this. So it feels a lot more natural. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I actually switched between that and a trackball. which also has, this one has a measure of verticality to it as well. Whatever my hand decides that it likes better for that particular day, basically. Let's see. Use a vertical mouse as well. One of my best investments ever. Yeah, between that and a split keyboard, it's helped. But yeah, I'm past the point of no return on that, essentially. Okay, so let's see. So we have our frame control. So now what we actually need to do is go to base, and when we take a look at type, we need to add a new type here. So I think I'm actually just going to tack this onto the end so that we don't potentially break anything. I don't think it's going to break anything, but we'll just do frame here. And we'll go back to this, and we'll just have to actually fix this because our font, or our find and replace is a little bit wonky sometimes. So reasonable defaults for this. I'm going to say a reasonable default is we're going to define this as having a default of 200 by 200 size. So that's going to be that. We're going to have a default color of white. We don't have a type on this one. We do not have the ability to focus this, so I'm going to remove that flag. And let's see, we do not have on focus or on unfocus anymore, so I'm going to remove those. And we do not have the types because this is not a text box, so I'm going to remove those. Let's see, so label internal control, so we do not have that. We do not have the cursor. We do not have the highlight box. We do not have the listener. The only thing that we do have is the 9 slice. I am going to go ahead and say, let's see, the atlas size, so corner size. So we need to actually plug in some stuff into our atlas for frame controls. We edited the file, but we didn't actually edit. Edit the parsing of that. So our KUI atlas config needs a small update. So we're going to do the text box control. Again, we're just going to copy that. And I'm going to put this in here and just say frame. And we'll say frame here. And our text box config is going to get us most of where we need to be. So let's just go ahead and put that down here. And so this is going to be frame and frame. Now we don't have control mode configs here, but let me think about this for a second. I think we can just type def this actually. Sort of re-type def it, as it were. So what we can do is we can just do, we can do this, and then that, right? So we can just treat that as the type for that configuration. And then the KUI system, we are going to need to, I think this is where we do the parse atlas config. Yes, it is. So basically what we need is essentially, I guess I can, again, steal the text box stuff. This has a bunch of stuff in it we don't need once again, but let's go ahead and take it anyway. So this is going to be label, or not label, frame, am I thinking? Let's see. Why is that a to do. That should not be a to do. So frame is going to be, let's see, we have modes object. We do not have a modes object in here. We do not have normal. All we have is the extents and the corner size and pixel size. So these are actually going to come from the control object in the configuration. And then we don't have this. Right. So, oh, right. I have to change this to frame. And then we don't have normal. There. Okay. So we have that, which means that we can now fix these. And right, that's the 9-slice creation. We don't need a second 9-slice. We only have just the one. And then, the clip mask reference ID. So why do we need, let me think about this. We do not need a clip mask for this. So that can go away. The geometry here is for the clip mask. So all this clip mask stuff, we don't need any of it. We don't need that either. The only thing we need is the binding instance ID from the shader. Let's see. This is for the base, so we don't actually need this. We don't need the cursor. We don't need that. We don't need highlight base or the highlight box. And we don't need these key presses. So essentially that's all we need to do to create this control. Is essentially we just come up with a default size. We load up the properties from the atlas to be able to load the correct frame and all that stuff. And then we're good to go. The destroy is pretty much going to be the opposite of what we have. So we don't have the events anymore. We don't need the focus line slice. We don't need the destruction of the clip geometry because we don't have that. We don't have a listener anymore. All we have is pretty much this stuff. So that's good. The control size gets. We only need to adjust the 9-slice and the size. So we can actually remove some things here as well. Let's see, remove hard-coded stuff. What do we have that's hard-coded? Why is this hard-coded to 10? That's not right. That should definitely be coming from... Let me actually just grab this entire thing. So let's just take out what we need here. So we have corner size. We don't need that geometry. We don't need this creation. We have this corner size here, which is local corner size. We don't need... Wait a minute, let me think about this. So what was that geometry? That was for the clip mask geometry, right? Yeah, so we don't need that. We do need this first one. But we don't need those things. And we don't need... Wait a minute. How does the 9-slice update... I guess that's it. Actually, we don't need any of this. Come think of it. 9-slice update does all that for us. So we should be good on that front as well. Okay. Width and height set. It's going to basically just call into this. So that's fine. Color set. not really worried about that either. We don't have the focus 9 slice here, so that is good to go as well. Let's see. So when we go to render the control, all we actually have to worry about is the 9 slice. So we don't have the label, the base, cursor base, or the highlight base. We just have the 9 slice. And we don't actually have the ability to focus this. So all we actually need is that. So I can actually just take this and do that. And then we fill out the render structure. We don't need the clip mask stuff here. We don't need the highlight stuff here. Again, no clipping stuff. None of the rest of this stuff, actually. So that's actually it. And I think, let's see, I'm guessing these warnings are for stuff that's included that we no longer need. Yeah, okay, perfect. So, that should be the frame control, as far as we're concerned. So essentially now what we need to do is we need to take that and input this text browser selected frame. So I think the way that I'm going to do this, initially at least, is I'm going to go in here and just kind of hard-code its position to make sure that the control shows up correctly. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to hack this for now. Hard-coded selection position. And what we'll do is we'll say states text browser, what did we call that? Selected frame. Whoop, wait a minute. Is it not? Text browser selected frame. There it is. So that's going to be equal to KUI frame control create. And to that, we're going to pass the state KUI state. And the name, we'll just go with, I guess, the same thing. So that if we go to select it by name, we just know what it is. And let's see, we then need to do a add child in a position set. So we'll just copy pasta those in there. So we want to add it as a child to the background panel for the texture browser. And this will be text browser selected frame. And then the position set for this guy is going to be equal to you know what? I'm going to set it to this for now. I'm thinking that's not the right position for it. And we're going to, whenever we refresh the texture browser, we'll update its position. So when we go in here, we'll say if we have texture names, actually, if we have, let's see, search names, yeah, we should probably put it here. So let's do this. And our, let's see, do we do a position set on this guy? I think we do. Do we not? That's the size. Oh, we do that down here. Oh yeah, we don't want to do this in the loop, do we? All right, let's take this actually down here. Let's do this after the loop. So this is if we have a texture browser count, right? So this is if we have at least one texture that's being displayed. Then we're going to do the hack hard-coded position. And to this, we're going to say, ooh, you know what? This might not actually draw on top of the image. thinking about it, we might actually have to like remove it and reparent it. I'm pretty sure we're not going to see this when I load it up, and I will explain why in a minute. But let's do, so let's see, image position is texture tile size, X and Y. So this is actually going to be 0, 0 on here. So we'll do a need to calculate based on selected index. Not going to worry about that for now. I'm just trying to get it in here and good to go. So I suspect what's going to happen is because these controls are drawn in the order that they're added currently. And because we're adding all of these image controls here on refresh, I suspect that this is not going to show because it's technically behind it. I should, though, do KUI control is visible. Wait a minute. We want KUI control. Was this the one to... This is the check. Is visible. Set is visible. That's what I want to do. Okay, so QE states. And then states text browser search label. No. Selected frame. And then true. And we want an else clause here to hide it if there is no listing of textures. Why has it done that? I have a feeling my LSP doesn't like how long this file is getting, but the Vulkan file is longer, so it's a little bit weird. All right, anyway, let's build this. Let's load it, see what we get. Oh, if we actually can build it. Kohi frame line 50. 50. Oh, corner side. Do we really not use local corner size? Oh, okay. I guess we really don't need it.
Dingus.
That's fine. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Enumeration value not handled in switch. Oh, right, because right, we don't actually have a way. Oh, and we didn't add a type array for this. Sweet. Okay. So we need to actually do that. Completely forgot about that. So let's actually just take this, put it down here, and we're going to do frame controls. I'm just going to copy pasta this block and do frame controls, and I know I've got at least one more of these to do. So again, I think I'm probably just going to copy pasta this guy, put it in here. So we want frame controls, same here. Oops. Right, and then this is frame control. Let's see. Okay, so this is the logic that looks through the array for free entries. Did I miss any copy pasta stupidness here? I don't think so. Okay. And I see we have one more warning in here. So what's this last one? Ah, release handle. Yes. Need to do that as well. So frame controls, and then of course the frame control type. Okay. Did I miss anything else? Probably. But let's give it a whirl anyway. Let's stop this. Run again. I don't know why this debugger is doing this now, but it's like debugging, or it's like bogging down my startup time by a few seconds, and it's kind of annoying. All right. Insertion failure. What are we? Oh, I bet I know exactly what it is, actually. I don't think we... Yeah. Dingus. All right. D-array creates. We need to add one more entry here for frame controls. All right. And I do see there's chat to catch up on, so I just want to see if this works real quick, and then I'll take a break and catch up on chat. My hands could use a second anyways. All right. Well, contrary to what I was thinking, the frame did actually show up, although... it's, well, okay, the size is wrong, which is actually not too surprising. The position being wrong is a little bit... Oh, it's not in... Oh, I know why it showed up, too, because I didn't add it to the scrollable control content. I added it to... I added it to the base window. Okay. Well, it's actually acting like I told it to act then, but at least it looks like... At least it looks like it's in there and rendering correctly, even if my position is wrong. So, that's good. Okay. Let me catch up here with chat. So if you're new here, yeah, sometimes it does take me a second to circle around to chat, but I do my best to keep up with it. Why didn't Mac keep updating OpenGL? Because they want to push metal. So, yeah. If you have a split keyboard, why do you still use NeoVim? I mean, you already have all the key bindings already built in. Well, the split keyboard doesn't really make a difference, right? So, like, it's kind of hard to show it because I can't, like, move that camera, but, like, my keyboard is literally... See if I can lift this here without completely dropping everything. My keyboard's literally in two halves, right? And so the advantage there is that I can place them at the angle that my hands actually require on the desk, so that your hands aren't kind of like this, but they can be at a more natural angle like this. And I also, I 3D printed like a little stand to go under it, so that it's actually like a more ergonomic angle as well. And so it's just like a regular keyboard, like, but split in half, or an ergonomic keyboard, but instead of it being, you know, with a solid piece in the middle, it's actually two separate halves connected by a USB cable. So it's a lot more flexible in terms of how it can be moved around, and it's much, much better on the hands. Let's see. Zealous UK, first time chatter, welcome. An odd question, studying computer science, and I'm on my final year. Congrats on that. Yet I still feel like I pretty much have zero clue how to code. I've asked around, lots of people on my course just use AI. Don't do that. I will say that straight up. Do you think development in the future will be majority done by AI? Nope. And developers just check the code that runs correctly? Yeah, absolutely not. No. AI is nowhere near that point. definitely not. So, and I think some other people have responded to this, but my bottom line is with this is if you are going to use those things, use it to write stuff that doesn't matter, right? Use it to write like a build script or something once you understand it, right? If you don't want to generate a make file, maybe use it to do that kind of thing, right? But one thing you never want to do is you don't want to export your critical thinking and problem solving skills to AI, because you will atrophy those skills, and you're just developing them now. So absolutely do not do that. Avoid it like the plague. You will be much, much, much better off in the future not doing that and figuring out those problems on your own and learning how to figure out how to get through those problems on your own. That right there is the single most important piece of advice I'd have to offer you on that, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, code bases that are coded by AI are eventually going to reach a point where they're going to have a senior developer come in to fix all of it at some point anyway. So it's like long-term job security, I guess you could think of it. Because they have like a sliding context window. They're never going to completely understand everything that it is that you're trying to do, because they can't. They don't have critical thinking. It's a token generator, right? So just don't export your problem solving and critical thinking skills to that stuff. It's a dangerous road to go down for your skills, especially when you're first developing them. So if you heavily struggle with actually coding, then that just means you need to do more of it, right? That, the thing that I also tell people is there's no way around it. There's only a way through it. There's no shortcut to getting good at it other than you just need to write code. And don't get attached to your code. Write code, throw it away, and then write it again without using the last one as a reference. Practice. Look at other code that's written out there as examples, and try to come up with your own way of doing it, but also try to understand how somebody else did it and understand why you might do it differently, and think about different ways that you might approach it. But the only way that you're going to get good at it, I mean really good at it, if in a way where you're going to hone your craft, is to just constantly code. Yeah, Potham also brings up another point, right? Don't overthink about when you're starting something, particularly on your own. Get it working correctly first, and then worry about making it performant, and then worry about making it clean, right? And take all of these clean coding things with a grain of salt. Casey Muratori's got an excellent talk on that you should watch if you haven't already seen it. And that's all I'll say about that, because that's a whole rabbit hole that I don't want to go down right now, but yeah. Coding is like a brick wall. You can't go around. You have to smash through it. Exactly. Yeah, there's no way around it. There's no shortcut. You have to go through it. 100%. Yep. Thought you had a Lily 58 with thumb keys or something like that, where you can easily layer it like it was Neofit. Yeah, so this is a Keychron Q11. Q11 custom, I think they call it for some reason. And it's not like some of those other ones like you see the Primogen using and stuff like that. That to me doesn't... I don't want to switch to something that is then going to make me struggle using like a standard keyboard if I have to, right? So this is close enough to a standard keyboard that I could still switch from it to like a laptop keyboard very easily. Whereas like using one of those super specialized keyboards, I think that would break my brain in terms of being able to switch back and forth, which I have to do a lot. All right, let's see. Those keyboards just confuse me. My mind just goes blank when looking at them. Yeah, exactly. Yep, 100%. An actual mouse that's vertical. Color me stupid, who knew? Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about it until I started actually looking into it, and I was like, oh, that actually kind of makes sense. Chris Muga, hello, how are you doing? Welcome. Been a fan of the friend of the channel since the first time I saw you working on this project. If not last year, then 2024. Awesome. Well, good to see you. Hope all is well. Always thought Kohi was a separate project from Illumina, just wondering why they seem to be in the same folder. So it is a separate project, actually. So Kohi is freely available and open source, whereas Illumina is not at the moment. So the way that I have it structured and the way that I'm going to set up templates for this is Kohi is actually a submodule, where Illumina is sort of the owning project, right? So Illumina, I have the application and the code library here, or the game code library here. And then as a submodule, I have Kohi with all of its projects underneath of that. And so everything that's under Kohi here is all open source and available on GitHub. But the game code itself is not. But I am updating testbed as necessary to include examples of how to use all this stuff. It's just the Illumina game code is not going to be open source until sometime after I release the game. Let's see. Genuine question. After 5 years of Kohi, did you exceed your expectations or did you underperform to what you had in mind? Or perhaps is it way more work than you originally expected? Yes, across the board. Yes to all of those questions because they're not mutually exclusive. So I exceeded my expectations in some spaces and underperformed in others, right? And part of that was because I wanted to try and experiment with things versus just doing what I already knew for the whole thing, because that obviously would have been faster, right? If I had gone the route of writing an OpenGL renderer instead of doing Vulkan, and I wrote all the systems the same way that I've written them for other engines, then I probably would have been done in a few months, right? But I wanted to experiment and do some deep dives into this stuff along with you guys so it could be a learning experience for me as well. And so with that comes the cost of a little bit of extra time for sure. But, and is it way more work than I originally expected? No. It wound up taking me longer than I originally expected because I was expecting to be able to spend a little bit more time on it, but like IRL responsibilities and all that stuff, it adds up. But I guess, because I was thinking, I was like, well, yeah, it's going to take me a year to write an engine, and then I'll be able to make a game with it. Well, I wasn't completely wrong, but I was thinking a year in like full-time hours, like contiguous year, not necessarily less than part-time hours. So I wasn't completely wrong in my time estimate. It's just how that fits into a calendar was off by a very large margin. But at the same time, I guess I kind of expected that. I hope that answers your question. If I'm building a game engine, should I first make it a CLI, then make it a GUI later? So that depends on what your goal is. One thing I said in the very beginning of this series is there are other places that you need to get correct with the engine before you even start on the renderer. And that's true in all cases, right? The renderer is just one aspect of a game engine. And so you need to have your foundational layers to kind of build the renderer on top of, right? So you don't start with the renderer, you kind of start with some of these other things. Windowing, event system, file access and management, things like that, right? All of those things, a math library, all of those things you have to use or have in place to build the renderer on top of. So when you're first building it, you might not actually have a window that opens up for a little bit. and that's okay. So in that sense, it's kind of starts CLI, but I wouldn't wait too long to pop a window open either. But yeah, there is sort of there's a little bit of an order of operations in how to build things. And I went over that in the early part of the series, kind of in high level detail. So I guess to answer your question more succinctly, technically speaking, you will start with a CLI, but you shouldn't wind up staying there all too long. Once you get the basic systems in place, you should be moving on to windowing, and then input, and then a renderer, and so on and so forth. Let's see. Do you mind sharing how did you go through the first time? Not sure if it was before the resources we have now. So what do you mean by how did I go through the first time? What do you mean by that? Do you mean like how did I learn how to write game engines or renderers? Is that what you mean? Or do you mean something different than that? Are you doing any graphics pipeline generation, or is everything predefined right now? So we have, let me think. We do have configuration files for graphics pipelines that tell us things like what our vertex layout's going to be. Here, let me actually, we call them shader configs. So let me pull up, let's see, material. Do I still actually have, I don't have, that one's, let me think of a good example. I guess I could go with, HF terrain. So we have these configuration files that we load that are used to actually stand up the graphics pipelines. So we have a few properties up here at the top, about various, whether it supports wireframe mode, whether it, what kind of culling it uses, whether it supports depth testing, writing, stencil tests are in there as well. What our attachments look like, so we can have multiple color attachments, a depth attachment, a stencil attachment. In Vulkan, they're the same thing, but they don't necessarily always have to be for all graphics APIs. So this is not Vulkan specific. It's just, it's generic because we're going to have multiple backends. And then we have these sort of different pipelines, is what I call them. And these basically are for, each one of these is basically to be used with a different vertex layout, so that we can use the same shaders, but with different vertex layouts. So we define our attributes here, we define what stages we use here, and what shader files that those are attached to, and then those load up the thing. And then we have these binding sets, which can loosely be thought of as descriptor sets, and those things are configured here in this file. So we can set up one of these files, and then our rendering system reads this in and knows how to configure the pipeline and set it up. So, let's see. Sol infrastructures first, and then shape GUI afterwards. Yep, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Coming from Java, how difficult would it be for me to learn C++? I already have strong experience with OOP and algorithms. I want to focus on implementing enemy AI and gameplay programming. So, I'm going to give you a little bit of a sideways answer on this, because I think starting with C++ is a bit folly. I usually suggest people start with C and then go to C++, because C is a much simpler language. And I realize you're specifying OOP here, and I'll come back to that in a second. Obviously, C does not support OOP out of the box. You can do OOP with C, right? But I usually suggest that folks learn and understand C first, because it'll help you understand C++ a heck of a lot better when you get to it, especially things like pointers, right? And so I usually say learn C first, then jump to C++. And that will also give you little bit of a perspective on some other ways of doing things aside from just OOP. It'll kind of force you away from that paradigm a little bit and expose you to other ways of writing software besides just OOP, because OOP is not a one-size-fits-all solution and is not always ideal. We don't do a lot of OOP here in this engine, and there are many reasons for that, which I won't go into now. I've gone over it many times. But long and short of it is there are other ways to do it, and OOP is not always it. So, if you're already familiar with those paradigms, that's cool, and that's good. This might give you some exposure to doing it a different way. So I usually say, learn C first, then jump to C++. You might jump into C++, find out it's a nightmare, and that you like C better and jump back to C. Or the opposite. You never know. But that's my suggestion there. Because if you just try to jump into C++ without having the fundamentals of C, I feel like that's a much harder way to do it than the other way around. Let's see, that's cool. To your materials, then just look for a pipeline that fits their need. So materials right now are technically hard-coded to look for a specific pipeline. We are eventually going to have configurable ones, but I'm not going to write that until I need it. So right now we actually have a material standard pipeline that all materials go through, except for terrain materials, because they have a little bit of a different set of requirements. Let's see. Been trying to implement a skeletal animation system in my game, and I just can't make it work. Wonder how hard it was before Learn OpenGL books, the Kohi series. Do you mind sharing? How did you go about it? Okay, I see what you mean. Okay, so just stuff like that in general. There's actually not a lot of resources out there on that. There are some resources out there. Learn OpenGL is one of them. I want to say there was another one that was based around DirectX that was quite a bit old. I can't recall the name of it at this point, but there was another one out there that dealt with like DirectX 9, I want to say. And there's a few really, really old OpenGL ones out there that I also cannot recall at this point because it's been too long. But it was one of those things where I actually went into already existing engines and started looking at their code. One engine that I actually did some work on, but also used it as a reference early on, was the Torque engine, because that eventually wound up going open source. But I also co-wrote the material editor for that engine. So that was a huge resource for me for a very long time, because that engine was originally the Dynamics V12 engine is what they called it, and then they essentially, the people that started up Garage Games bought the rights to it from Dynamics and renamed it to Torque, and then there was the Torque Advanced game engine, and then there was the Torque 3D game engine, which was the one that switched to the modern way of doing things, and that was the one that I did some work on. But yeah, that was a great resource. There's lots of good stuff in there too, lots of legacy stuff in there too. They had parts of their terrain system up until, I want to say like 2007 or 2008, parts of their terrain system were still written in inline assembly, to give you an idea. But yeah. All right, so let me see here. So glad I stopped programming in OOP. Pure procedural style is so much more straightforward to me. Yeah, OOP just tends to get in the way more often than not. So yeah, at least that's been my experience. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to read all of the Twitch conversation there. So far, I haven't struggled with any critical thinking from any project that I've made and for my uni work. That's good. What I seem to struggle with is syntax and remembering how to write functions. Oh yeah, that's common. I mean, that'll go away with just doing it, right? The other thing that I meant to answer to add to that answer, is having the ability to analyze errors and really look at them and understand what it's trying to tell you, right? So like if I remove the semicolon from here and I look at this error message, it says expected semicolon after expression, right? That one is pretty obvious, I guess. If we do something like remove this equals, then we can say we've got this one that says expression result unused, right? Which is just this guy. And then we have this one here, which is expected after expression, right? And then result unused. So it thinks that this is an expression that's unused, and it thinks that this is just also unused and not doing anything, right? And so it's like you kind of learn how to critically think, put those things together and go, oh, I'm missing the equal sign there. And then all of a sudden, we don't have an unused expression and we're not missing a token, right? It's not necessarily always a one-to-one like, hey, this is exactly what you need to go do. Sometimes it's like you have to kind of read the error messages and just kind of critically think your way through them. Like, what am I missing here? And that just comes with practice, honestly. Like we've all been saying, there's no way around it. There's no shortcut. It's just experience. Sounds like you're mostly wrestling with the language. It's just secondary to coding IMO. I would agree with that, yeah. Usually resolves itself the longer you code in that language. Yeah, exactly. It's just an experience thing. So don't get demoralized by it. Just keep pushing forward. Be more stubborn than the errors that you're combating, right? Let's see. My new engine is a confused string and math library that thinks it's a game engine. I mean, isn't that how all game engines start, though? Realistically, it's always string handling and then math. And then all the other stuff on top of that. Well, and a bunch of typedefs, right? How would employers look at this? Once I finish uni, I'd like to get a job coding. Will they be harsh and expect me to be perfect or help me learn as a developer? So that depends on the place that you're applying to, right? Most reasonable places are going to understand that you're a junior, you're still learning the stuff, and they're not going to expect you to know things backwards and forwards. You are going to run into places where the interviewers just like, messing with you for sport. And, if you detect that that's happening, just end it, right? And move on, try somewhere else. Unfortunately, that is a thing. There are lots of people out there who like doing interviews because it's a boost to their own ego, right? And that's an unfortunate thing that exists in the industry. And you probably are going to run into that, and it is unfortunate, but, don't let those people beat you down. Just kind of be like, okay, well, I'm going to try somewhere else, because chances are you're not going to want to work with those people anyway. And I'm not going to name anywhere specific, but, I think a lot of us out there that have worked any number of jobs in the industry have run into at least one interviewer like that. So, just keep applying, keep trying, right? And while you're doing that, keep honing your skills, keep practicing. Keep at it, you'll just get better. Good employer will understand you're just out of uni and will probably retrain you to fit their style. Yep. Bad one will do the opposite and get you, and if you get one of those, run, do not stay and try and make it work. Yeah, exactly, right? 100%. Raster Tech used to be, not a good resource, but a resource nonetheless. Yeah, Raster Tech, I think, is one of the ones that might be the DirectX one I'm thinking of. Zealous UK, thank you for the Prime. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate that support. Let's see. Trying to make my game engine in Raylib. Is that a good idea? Or should I make it in C or C++? Well, Raylib is written in C, so Those aren't mutually exclusive things. It depends on your goals, right? So if your goal is to write a game quickly, then something like Raylib is going to get you there a lot quicker. If you're looking to learn how to write a game engine from scratch, including how to write a renderer and learning graphics APIs and stuff like that, Raylib is kind of skipping all that stuff for you. So, it depends on what your goals are. Raylib is an excellent library, though. It's highly optimized, and it's very well written. So, maybe for your first foray into graphics programming, just to understand some of the high-level concepts, that would be a good place to start. Let's see. I think this is a multi-part question, so let me see. If I have a house on a terrain, there are point lights, spotlights inside the house, one directional light, sun outside. Is that one set of shaders that'll be used to render it, to render the scene, or will you have to switch a set of shaders when the player moves from outside to inside the house? Or in general, is a game engine on rendering each frame, determining what meshes, lights, light sources, effects, etc., to determine what shader is loaded and switch to that shader for rendering? Okay, so that's a really loaded question, but the answer to it is it varies and it depends. So the way some renderers are written, they basically use what's called an Uber shader, which basically has a whole bunch of flags and options that you can pass to the shader, and it all uses one gigantic shader to render everything. More often than not, that's not really the way that a lot of engines do it, but smaller, simpler games could certainly get away with that. Usually, there is at least one shader or maybe a set of shaders per type of material. Or even like in Kohi's case, we actually have one shader for materials, period. And then there's like a different shader for the skybox. There's a different shader for the terrain. And those just vary based on requirements of vertex data, typically. And what textures the fragment shader needs to sample and things like that. But it's not really a one-size-fits-all answer. It really depends on what it is you're trying to render, what setup you're using, and what the requirements of your program really are. Yeah, I don't I don't know how to answer that other than that. There's not really a one-size-fits-all solution there. I remember you saying if you had a secondary engine that you used to try things out before recording the video. Do you still use that, or do you just go ahead right now? Yeah, so I don't have that anymore. I try stuff all in here. Sometimes I'll do things offline and I'll check them in. And then I'll go over it on the next stream if I happen to do it offline. But yeah, I do everything in Kohi now. I don't really have a sort of test project that I do that stuff in anymore, because Kohi's come so far that I don't really need to do that anymore. Can you show off Kohi's gizmos? I've kind of got a thing for them. Okay, I can do that. I don't know. You know what? I can't actually close the texture browser, so this is going to be interesting. So if I go to, and there's a strong possibility with some of the updates that I may have broken these, so we'll see how it goes. But there is the movement gizmo, right? So I actually don't even know, does this currently work? Yeah, it does. Okay. So you can move on, Y, X, or Z, or you can have a selection of two of those axes, which just moves along that plane, or you can have a selection of all the axes, which moves on the plane that is parallel to the camera. And then, so that's the move mode, and then there's rotate, which has the ability to obviously rotate things. And then there is scale, which operates similar to how movement works, right? So you can have two axes one axis or all three. Scaling this selected entity doesn't really make any sense, but let's see. Let's do maybe this one. And so, you know, you can scale it or whatever, or if you wanted to rotate it, you can, oops. If I can stop misclicking, that'd be great. So, you know, you can rotate it. Also, you may have noticed, or may not have noticed, that the text boxes up here move as well. So there's that. But yeah, that's pretty much the gizmos. And the other thing is they stay constant size in the scene. So no matter how far you move away from them, they maintain their size on the screen. And that's just because if you're this far away from the object and you really wanted to move it kind of far, right, that would be kind of difficult if this scaled along with the rest of the scene and it was like really tiny, right? So yeah, that's all there is to it. And you know, that along with everything else, the engine was all written from scratch. So that all that logic is available with the engine too. So all right. Thanks for the advice. Makes you feel better. And I'm glad. Yeah, just yeah, my biggest thing there is just keep at it, and don't let people who are being dinguses, you know, demotivate you, right? All right. I think I'm caught up on chat now. Let's see. Can you change the gizmos to only work in body frame versus world frame? I think you mean, let's see. Do I have one that's actually, I think what you're asking is local versus global mode, which, yes, we do have that as well. There are some issues with it. It's not perfect. I do have some things to work out, but yeah, there is a local mode and a global mode. Aerospace terminology, fair enough, yeah. So I'm guessing body frame would be local and world frame would be global, essentially. I think I understand what you're getting at. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay. So, where was I? I think we were setting up, oh yeah, we were setting up the selection. So that was in the texture browser refresh. And oh, you know what? Initialize is actually what I need. Edit to initialize. We don't have hard-coded selection position, but this needs to be added to a child, or as a child of the, let me think about this for a second. So we need to add this as text browser content container. So it needs to be a child of that. However, when we refresh, when we rebuild the window of textures there, we actually destroy all the child controls and rebuild it from scratch, which I think is also going to technically mean that's also going to wipe out our selection control. But I think that's actually fine, because that will actually automatically solve the layering problem for us. So actually, we don't even need this is visible stuff. We can actually just do without that. So essentially, we're going to recreate this all the time anyways. So let's go ahead and just do that. And then what I'll do is actually back up and initialize. I'm going to remove this since we're adding it during refresh anyways. So we'll do a selection frame. And let's see, we'll default that to go over the first item. And we'll change that on like an on-click event. That's fine. We'll probably wind up doing this position set somewhere else where it can be calculated on the fly. Let's see. So we have... Oh, we also need to set the size, which is going to be the text tile size, X and Y. So we need to do KUI frame size set state Kohi states and self is going to be state text browser selected frame, and width is going to be the state text tile size X, and the height is going to be state, oh, I'm recording, that's why, text tile size Y. So that should set the size correctly. I'm going to actually do that after we add it as a child control. And then, whoops, I missed another arrow operator there. Okay, so let's build that. Let's see if that pops up in the right spot. Okay, so we'll load this up, go into our editor, and we can actually see, oh, and because we use the selected size, yeah, it's actually correct. It's actually surrounded the whole thing, though it's actually taking padding into account, which is not, maybe not necessarily what we want. So I should probably change that, but you can kind of see it there. It's also making this have like a dark background, which I'm not overly fond of. So I think we're going to have to sample from a different location on our actual image, but we do at least have it working the way that we need to. So let's see, we have text tile size. And when we go ahead and set that, actually, we do have the padding. Maybe I should use image box size instead of text tile size. Let's do that. Let's use image box size. So we'll use image box size for those two. And then we're actually going to have to open up. I could have sworn that we actually had like a something in here that didn't actually have this background in it, but I guess we don't. So we're actually going to need like a copy of that. I guess it's probably going to be the correct way to do it, because we don't want this sort of semi-transparent background thing. So let's see. Let's do this. Open this up in ye old GIMP. And I believe this is the square that we are, oops, don't want to do that. This is the square that we are actually currently dealing with right here. Oh, I opened the PNG. I didn't want to open the PNG. I want the XCF that has all the layer data. Okay, it's going to make me do that. Discard. There we go. Okay. So, oh, I guess this doesn't have all the layer data. I must have clobbered it at some point. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to take this and move it down here. And then I guess I can just actually remove this the stupid and hard way, but it's pixel art, so who cares? So we need that right there. And one more. Okay. And we'll merge this down. Merge down, there it is. And I'm just going to export this. So replace and export. Okay. And now it shows up in here with our new update. So I will need to run the import process for the UI library. So let's do that real quick. And since that file is updated, it should just detect that and re-upload it. Did it do it? Oh, it was working on it, I guess. Okay. Let's see. Yep, okay. So it did re-import it. Good. All right. So the other thing that I need from this, actually, is I need to know exactly where this is. So this is at 117. Wait. Is that's 1 pixel, right? Why is it 117, 181? Okay. So let's go into, I think I had the atlas file here. Shoot, what did I say that was? 117, 181. Okay, so 117, 181. And then the max of that is just going to be different again on the x-axis. So that's just going to be, I'm doing this off screen, you guys can't see it. There we go. So I'm just going to scroll down and get the max position of this, which is going to be over here. And so that's going to be 227, 224. So 227, 224. And that should be all I need to get that to show up correctly. So let's go ahead and build this, because I did make a code change as well. And see what we've got. I may also need to make that highlight color brighter. Oh, I re-imported the asset again because I don't have the right thing set to run. Okay, so we'll do this, open the editor, and there we go. Okay. Yeah, that looks a lot better now. But it is hard to see. because of what color it is. So I guess I could maybe try tinting it. Is the color actually used in this though? So let me go to did we actually wind up using? I don't think so. And does the color actually do anything? Did we actually hook that up, or was it just... No, all it does is set the color. And I don't know if the 9 slice actually has a way to update the color. Does not look like it does. So that has, let's see, vertex 2D. So I guess, let me see. Does the 9 slice itself actually define that anywhere? I don't think it does. So I guess one thing that we could do, we don't have vertex data in here either though. Because I think this is just offsets and whatnot. Oh no, it does actually have it. How much of a pain in the butt's that going to be? It'd be nice to be able to set the vertex data, or to just set the color on all the vertices for this via a function that we don't have yet. But I think for now, maybe it would make more sense to just edit the image. So we've got this sort of dark color here. I suppose what we could do, we do have this sort of technique that we use for focusing text boxes, where we outline this sort of inner box here. I suppose I could do something similar. Let's see, we've got 2 pixels there of data. I could run a border around the inside of this. That's a single white pixel. That might make it stand out more. And maybe around the outside as well. Or maybe it should just be a solid white set of pixels. I wonder if that would be better or worse. I feel like it would be a little bit better. I can always revert it, I guess. So let's actually just swap this and go to a a 1 pixel brush, and I'll just, oh, am I in the wrong mode? Normal. Why are you not drawing? What am I missing here? Mode normal. Size 1, spacing. Oh, maybe I need that. No. I don't have dynamics on. Why is it not drawing? Huh? What am I missing? It's gonna be a stupid checkbox somewhere. Guarantee it. But it won't let me draw at all. Weird. Alright, well, I don't think I'm gonna worry about it for now because we're basically out of time anyways. So if I don't find it here in the next couple seconds, I'm just gonna not worry about it. I don't even think... Why does that not allow me to... The layer's not locked. What is happening here? It is in pencil mode. that should work. I don't understand why it's not. I don't actually see anything here that... I mean, I guess I could go with that, but... GIMP, you fail me again. Enable dynamics. Maybe that's it. Nope. Didn't need that on anyways, though, but doesn't seem to be it. I don't know. Why is that not allowing me to draw? Can write programs to like draw pixels to a screen, but apparently can't use a image editor. Awesome way to end a stream. Anyway, let's see. What do you think is the best way to approach in-game user interface? Stuck at that stage and have no idea how to approach it. Depends on the interface. If you have an interface like what we're dealing with here, that's like an editor interface that has lots of buttons and controls and things like that, the interface requirements for that are going to be much different than, say, an in-game interface that, you know, maybe just has like a HUD on the screen and other stuff like that. So it depends on the interface you can make. There's two main ways of approaching interfaces. There's retained mode and immediate mode. You'll want to look into those. A lot of people swear by immediate mode these days. I'm on the fence about it. What I'm doing is retain mode. Eventually, I'm going to have both. But that'll be something you'll want to look into as well. It's the difference between those. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. So basically, you'll want to figure out what your requirements are and then which one of those paradigms fits, and then go from there. You love immediate mode? Yeah, a lot of people do. I think it has its uses, but I'm also a big proponent of use the right tool for the right job. So if it doesn't feel right for the job, don't use it, right? Would you recommend DirectX 11 for having better API-ish than OpenGL in the sense of that it has descriptors, maybe a little bit better to the pipeline, and is somewhat closer to Vulkan? Doesn't matter. I would say DirectX 12 is closer to Vulkan than 11. DirectX 11 is kind of closer to the old way of doing things. But I would also say that I would say the older versions of DirectX were easier to use, but not necessarily as powerful and fine-tunable as DirectX 12. If I were choosing between the two, I would probably opt for OpenGL. Or if it was between DirectX 12, then I would say Vulkan. But yeah, that's just me because I don't want to get locked to one platform. That being said, I am going to eventually do DirectX just because I eventually want to have Xbox support, but that's a whole other beast. Try to zoom out a bit or uncheck the lock brush and to view and reduce the brush size to a pixel viewable size. There's no way that could be it, right? Oh, I figured out what it was. I apparently had... So wait a minute. If you do select none... Okay, I had nothing selected. Then I selected all and it worked. And then I did select none and it still worked. Okay, sure. That seems fine. So anyways, this is what I was talking about wanting to do. Let's just do this. Oops. If I can actually get it to... Right, do that there, but then also here. Right, and I guess zoomed out. Like we might want to do, like I might want to just make that solid white. I haven't really decided. Maybe I'll do that. I can always recopy it, right? If I don't like it, I can always revert it too. Right, like maybe I just do, maybe I just make it solid. GIMP is trying to throw me off my game. How dare it? I'm already thrown off my game enough. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll save that. We will export again. And I'll run my import tool again. Oops. We'll do this one. Import it again, switch back to Illumina, run again. This might make it a little easier to see what is actually selected. Yeah, that's much easier to see. Cool. All right. We could always tint that later, but I think that's sufficient for now. Okay. So the next order of business, I guess, is going to be... I really had hoped to get to this tonight, but we're out of time. But that's okay, because, you know, chat is important, and I like interacting with you guys. So I think on the next stream, we'll go ahead and get to some of this. If I get some of it done offline, cool. But I think that's what we'll shoot for in the next stream. Is we're going to want to load sort of a larger preview of the texture here. And then maybe the full name and a blurb about it down here, where we can maybe inspect some properties like the format, the size of it, things like that. Let's see, white border looks snappy. Yeah, I think it's much better for sure. Does Kohi render to a geometry buffer? Looking at the standard material shader, I figured there'd be more output textures if stuff was being written to a geometry buffer. No, it doesn't. Nope. Yeah, it's gonna look sweet. Yeah, I think so. That looks pretty good. So we'll get the selection working in the next stream for sure. Let's see. Sure hope I got this long string macro right. Not looking forward to debugging it. Dynamic array macro, not string. Been programming way too long today. Yeah. How I know I've been programming too long for the day is when I'm like IMing somebody and I start typing out a sentence and I'll be like, hey, go look at this thing, and then I end a sentence in that. I do that all the time when I'm chatting. I'm like, damn it, I have to fix it. And that's how I know when I'm like hitting my limit of tiredness for sure. All right. With all that said, I know we didn't get very much done in terms of code tonight, but we did talk a lot about theory and how we want to proceed with it. So at least we have an idea for that to go into the next stream with. So I'm going to find somebody to raid. And while I do that, I would greatly appreciate a follow on the YouTube side or the Twitch side, or both if you're so inclined. If you have not already, I am trying to grow the channel. So each and every one of those is appreciated. And I actually see who we're going to raid. We are going to raid Reinart. He is working on, looks like he is actually doing a little bit of programming right now. He has also written a game engine on his own from scratch. His is in C++, but yeah, he's doing the engine and art for his game, which I'll be starting in the art for my game here shortly as well. So yeah, we're going to go check out and see what he's up to. And yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next stream. See ya.